I'm just going to be starting now. Hello, everyone. Good evening to you. Hope everyone is doing good. You're welcome to today's webinar. And today's topic will be on financial literacy for today's decision maker. I would be your host for today. My name is Adeoye Hart, and I'll be hosting this session on behalf of Brickhills Consulting. So I'm just going to be telling you briefly about what we do, who we are here at Brickhills Consulting. So at Brickhills Consulting, we are all about empowering individuals and businesses to elevate their skills through British accreditation and the British program, pretty much. So whether you're looking to upskill in accounting, finance, IT, data analysis, business, management, AI, tech courses, project management, human resources courses, marketing, etc. We have the capacity to empower individuals and businesses, and we have the flexibility because we have the virtual learning, that is the learning from the instructor to the clients, and we also have the video learning where you can learn at your own pace and you still get your certification. And we also have the in-person learning as well, where you can have the physical workshop. And these are like the three modes of learning. And we also break down our courses into three different categories. So we have for the beginners, we have for the middle level, which is the intermediate level. And we also have for the master class, this is like the expert level. So we are big on flexibility, and we are affordable, and we offer high quality training, for individuals or groups. So for further information, you can check our website on www.brickhillsconsulting.com. And for your registration for these courses, you can check www.brickhillsonline.com for further, inquiries. So today we'll be taking financial literacy for today's decision maker. And I have our speaker, no other person than John Adeoye. So I'm going to be speaking briefly about John Adeoye. He is a trust professional with extensive experience across commercial banking, investment banking, and trusteeship. He holds a degree in banking and finance from Kogi State University and is a certified financial modeling and valuation analyst. Currently, John serves as a manager public trust services at First Ally Trustees Limited, where he oversees trust structures and risk management operations. Over the years, he has worked with institutions such as Emerging Africa Trustees, FBN Quest Trustees, and Union Bank, building a strong reputation for trust finance and leadership excellence. He is also an active member of JC Nigeria, where he has served in various leadership roles, and he has earned several awards for service and consistency. So I would want everyone to indulge in this session, and let's also have our questions, jotting out our questions. So at the end of the session with Mr. John, we would go right into the Q&As. And yeah, thank you very much. Over to you, John.
Thank you very much, Izinwa. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to facilitate this webinar for Brickhills Consulting. Thank you very much, and for everyone that has joined, we appreciate you. Thank you very much. Without much ado, we just dive in straight into the topic for today. Just a second, let me share my screen. All right, please confirm if you can see my screen. Hello?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you very much. So we'll be considering the topic we'll be considering this evening is trust finance for non-trust professional. So basically, what we expect from this training is that what leaders should know, people that steers the aims of affair of organization, what they should know about the aspect of trust finance, and also moving on from just being financial literate to making plans for succession, making plans for takeovers, making plans for different things in business. So we'll just be going in depth into all of those things today. And I hope that at the end of the training today, we'll be able to have grabbed one or two things from the training. So these are the subtopic we'll be considering. First is we'll be simplifying what trust structure means. What we have different trust structures for different instance, for different situation. So it's not one size fits all. You can customize anyone as you want. We'll also be looking at fiduciary responsibility. We'll also be looking at how financial governance impacts leadership decision, how are decisions made, why do they take some decisions. We'll be looking at all of those in the training for today. Why does this topic matters? One, financial literacy is critical. I mean, in this 21st century, how we plan our finances, how we handle and manage our finances matters a lot to decision makers. Even as individual, it matters a lot to us. We don't want to be living from paycheck to paycheck. No, beyond now financial literacy, there's also the part of trust finance, which then goes along with organizational structure, accountability, management, the trust people has placed into decision makers of organization. For leaders, it influences their governance act and how they react to some matters. So all of those will be onboarding them this evening in the topic. So finance, 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 finance. For those that are not in the financial industry, don't be scared. We're going to break this down to a layman's language where all of us will understand what we're trying to do this evening. Objective to simplify, we'll discuss it. I'll just keep this. Yes, so I'll dive straight into what we'll be discussing. So we have this issue of, so I want to strike a balance between financial literacy and trust finance. Some of us might look at it and say, okay, I'm financial literate, I'm investing, I'm doing this. How do I then infuse trust finance into it? So financial literacy is what? The ability to understand and manage your personal finances or organizational finances. So basically what we're saying is that for you as an individual, for you as a decision maker in your company, how do you then manage? Do you understand the management? Do you also manage the resources available at your disposal for use? That is financial literacy. I mean, we hear a lot of time people say, we're doing financial literacy day, financial literacy day. We're not saying that. We're not just doing financial literacy. We want to move from just knowing where and how to invest or where to put our money or how to manage our finance. We're not going to the trust finance, which is what? The managing and structuring of financial assets through trust arrangement to ensure transparency. Now, you see that it's different from just managing. While managing, you are still doing what? You are ensuring transparency. While managing, you are ensuring what? Accountability. Whilst managing, you are also ensuring sustainability of the fund, which is where the trust comes in. We have so many charity causes in the country that people just do. Are they impactful? Not all are impactful. Are they sustainable? Not all are sustainable. You know, Early in the days when you want to execute a project, sometimes you look at it and say, okay, you need to conduct a need analysis. You need to be sure that what you're providing is what is really needed. Trust finance basically consider all of those things and put them into account, put them into consideration when putting up a structure that fits into what we want to do. It says so both financial literacy, trust finance are necessary for ethical and effective decision making. So if you have to make a decision that would outlast you in office, or a decision that even first gen, second gen will still benefit from it, then you are coming into trust, basically. And not just looking at now. Financial literacy might just look at now. Where can I put my money? Where can I invest? How can I manage it and get return? But when you move into trust, we are seeing beyond now. So for trust, basically we have three parties. Some of us might be familiar with this. We hear this words a lot: settlor, trustee, beneficiary. And we ask ourselves, who is a settlor? From the word settlor, Definitely, self-led is someone that set up that trust. That means me as an individual, if I want to set up a trust, I'm in the set law. Then the trustee is what? The trust company that does what? That is registered with the SEC, not just anyhow trustee. You have to meet a corporate trustee. Now, that is registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. They do what? They manage the trust fund, the trust asset, whatever you want to put in trust, they manage it. I'm still going to break this down as we move forward. And the beneficiary is what? So if I, as a person, I'm setting up an education trust for my children, for instance, if I'm setting up the education trust now, I hand it over to a trustee. The beneficiary of that education trust is what? My children. So they act as beneficiary. They serve as beneficiary to the trust. Sometimes my year, I mean, there was a time this slang, they say Nepo baby, Lapo baby, some trust fund baby, all of those things. I know most of us, we hear trust fund baby and I feel like, okay, what does trust fund baby mean? Trust fund baby are just basically those that their parents or their guidance has make financial plans for them, that they don't need to worry. There are times you hear some persons, they say, oh, before you can have access to your that's property or asset, you must be 25 years old. All of these things are infused into trust. The father might want to, some will say, okay, until you get married before you have access to this. And some will say until you are age 25 before you have access to all of these things. So all those things are trust structures that you can carve and also structure in a way that it's applicable to you or your family. Moving forward, where do trust and financial literacy, where do they meet? One, so you see on this slide, you see financial literacy ladder. So one of the things that we look at is financial literacy teaches how to make money work for you. While you are asleep, your money is making more money for you, basically. That means you are investing in the right instrument. And while you are sleeping at home, just enjoying, you are getting returns. You're not just leaving money in your bank account. You are investing in money market instruments. You are investing in commercial paper. You are speaking to your financial advisor to help you put your money where it matters. Then trust finance is not just teaching you all of that. It's also teaching you on what? On how to make money work for you sustainably. Underline the word sustainably, not just now. So that when you are even know more, that money is still working for you. Now, under financial literacy ladder, we have the basic, which is what? Managing your income and expenditure. I cannot emphasize this. We hear a lot of people mention, oh, track your expense, track your income. That is the basic. That's where you start from. If you wonder where your money goes every month and all of those things, you need to track your expense. You need to do what? Look at your income. Does my income correspond with my expense? I'm earning 50,000 naira a month. My expense on a monthly basis is 60,000 naira. That means I'm either getting a soft loan or I'm on credit to finance that deficit budget. Sometimes you hear that, oh, a state is financing deficit budget with what? With loans, with what? With grants, with different things. Are you getting grants from your uncle, your brothers, or your nephew? Or you're actually borrowing from the sharp loan, or you're borrowing from this money lender. So how do you then, there's a saying that say you don't live above your income. That means whatever you are making on a monthly basis, try to make your budget around it. That is what you can afford at that time. Don't go overboard. What you cannot afford, do not spend on it. Don't do proxy buying. Then when you have overcome this, and you now see that okay, I can save, I can conveniently save 20% of my salary, 30% of my salary, or you find it and say, okay, I think I have like 3 month, my 3 month expense is in my savings account. Then you now move to the intermediate level, which we call the savings, the investing, and the diversifying. So you save to invest. Let me point that out. You don't save to keep money in your bank account. You save those money to do what? To invest. You don't keep it in your bank account. After you save, you invest. In fact, now it's even easier. You have money market funds that you can invest in, and as low as 5,000 naira, you can put in there. Imagine you put a five, and the good thing is that with a compounding interest, if you can put in money any time of the month, you can put in money any time of the day, you can put in more money. Unlike a fixed deposit, that once you fix that money, you have fixed it, you run to the end of the tenure. But for a money market instrument, like a money market fund, if you have 10,000 naira today, you can put, if you have 1 million tomorrow, you can put as much as possible. So you're not just waiting to save till 500,000. You're not just waiting to save to 5 million naira. As you are saving, you are investing it almost immediately. So you are getting a return on it, basically. So if you now feel like, okay, under the intermediate too, you have saved, you have invested in financial instruments. You now also want to diversify your portfolio. So portfolio means different having different basket of different instruments. So let me say stock, equities. You also look at investing in real estate. You're also looking at investing in ETF. You're also looking at investing in commodities. You are then diversifying. Now, all of this is so, but in diversifying, you must consult your financial advisor because there are lots embedded into it so that you know what proportion goes to this, what proportion goes to the other parts of what you're trying to do. So maybe you're looking at, okay, I have 100 million naira, 50 million goes to a low risk asset, 25 million naira goes to a medium asset, and the remaining 25% goes to what? Your the high risk assets. Depending on your risk appetite, they will ask you some questions that you're able to discern what your risk appetites are. Are you somebody that when you lose money, you are very, very cringy about it, you are not happy, or somebody that believes that, okay, just like the stock market, it goes up and down. When you lose it, you believe that you're going to make it back, basically. So you need to know your risk appetite in diversifying your portfolio. Then when you now move to the advanced stage of the financial literacy ladder, that's when we come to structuring, governance, succession. That is when trust comes in. So you're now looking for something that will outlive you. You're not looking at having a structure in place. I mean, we have some, so that's where we now have family offices. You hear that somebody, just one person, just one company is managing somebody's wealth. They are not managing two persons' wealth. We have companies like that that just manage, they call them family office. They manage just that family's wealth alone and no other individual. They are ultra high in HNIs, they are high flyers, and we have lots of them even in Nigeria. Yeah, there is just one office that manages their family office, that family wealth. They then teach them how to do what, how to plan their legacy, how to do succession planning, how to do family business, and all of those things. Governance you should put in place. Then you now marry it to trust finance, basically. So we're moving from just not just financial literate, we are then moving towards succession. That means how to transfer your wealth to the next generation. What governance structure do you put in it? Also, I mean, just a quick one. We might be wondering in the course of the conversations, we might be mentioning some key terms. You mentioned trust, you mentioned trustee, you mentioned beneficiary. I mean, a trust is basically a legal structure where somebody that is called the trustee holds and manage your assets on your behalf. Now, there's always, which we'll still get into, there's always this misconception about, oh, how can I give my asset to this person? The person is taking control. No, what you're only handling to the trustee, you can still maintain control based on what you want. We have some trusts that are set up that are discretionary, some are non-discretionary. We have some that you can still retain the control. It is very flexible. So the fact that you're saying that somebody is managing it on your behalf does not mean that they now possess it totally. Does not mean that they now own it totally. Although we have cases where you can transfer your asset to a trustee for some reasons, which I will also see be discussing in this training. So now, moving from what a trust is, we now move to who a trustee is. A trustee is what? An individual or institution responsible for managing what? For managing trust assets on behalf of the beneficiary. I mean, the word trustee, you hear it a lot. In fact, in church, you hear, oh, these are the church trustee. These are people that what has been, the asset has been put in their care for them to manage. Now, we're not for the corporate space, we have the corporate trustees. We have a lot of corporate trustees. In Nigeria alone, we have about 35, 36 corporate trustees in Nigeria alone. We have lots of them in Nigeria alone. So they manage your trust assets on behalf of the beneficiary. So if you remember when I was doing the introduction, I mentioned something about education trust, where you make plans, you set aside some amount of money for your child towards their education, so that in case whether you are still alive or after your demise, that fund will be able to cater for the child's education, and your children are not stranded. You are not leaving your children in the hands of their family members or in the hands of guardians. The trust company will be paying the fees, school fees for that child, we're paying the allowance for that child, we're paying everything that has to do with the education of the child based on the agreement you have with them during the time of structuring. And we have many professionals that can guide you on all of these things, on how to go about it. So now we move to the beneficiary, which we have also said. Beneficiary is the person entitled to benefit from an asset under trust or the income of a trust, a named beneficiary. So for every trust, there will be a named beneficiary. And also look at fiduciaries. Who is a fiduciary? A fiduciary is a person in the position of trust who act with loyalty, care, and integrity. In terms of fiduciary, we have a couple of persons that act as fiduciary. An executor of a will is a fiduciary. Um, we also have a trustee is also a fiduciary. The trustee in churches, in other organizations, the trustees on different board of foundation, even trustee, even fiduciary too. Also board of directors, they are also part of the fiduciary too. So they are expected to act with what? Loyalty, care, and integrity. That integrity is very, very important. We also have governance, which is the framework for rules, practice, and processes. So governance encompass how things that will be done, how you have set it to be done, the governance structure. That means the rules and regulation guiding that relationship. When we don't have the compliance, that means adhering to laws and internal policies, the law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the law with respect to taxation, the law with respect to karma, the law with respect to, so all those law that are ethical and lawful to financial management. This is where you have them. Now, role of a trustee in leadership. I'm just limiting to three. We have lots of them, but just all of them revolve around this, and you can still infuse it into this. So in leadership, when you are being infused into, because we're also not just discussing about financial literacy trust, we're also discussing how this can help to take an effective decision or a very good decision making process. So as a leader, you are entrusted with what? To manage and protect assets. It could be assets of companies, it could be assets of individual. Then you have to treat them what? With utmost good faith. We also to treat them with care. Trust enables what? Transparency and accountability. We had said it earlier. It also reinforces credibility in the financial management. Now, in fact, when it comes to credibility, right? So for transparency's sake, people use trust for different purposes, which I was also see the mentioning during the course of the training. So there are instances where companies wants to pull money from the public, and one of the things that is required by the regulator is that you must have a trustee on that transaction. Basically, the trustees are not just there for nothing. What they are doing there is definitely to look after the well-being of the investors. If you want to invest in some debt capital market instrument in Nigeria, there must be a trustee on that transaction. E.g. is the likes of bond. If you're investing in a bond, there's need for a trustee on that kind of transaction because the trustee then do what? Look after the well-being. Imagine you have about 200 to 100 subscribers to a bond transaction. All the 200 of them cannot be looking at the books of the company, cannot be requesting for same information at different time. Then a trustee will be appointed to act on behalf of what? On behalf of the investor, to ensure that the investor do what? To ensure that the investor gets their payment, their coupon, their interest, their principal as and when due. To also ensure that the pledge that the issuer or the sponsor of the transaction had promised comes to the trustees. Then the trustees then disseminate through the registrar and pay those funds to the investors at the agreed time and date. Now, understanding trust structure. We had mentioned that there are three parties to it: the settlor, the trustee, and also the beneficiary. So the settlor established the trust. We have said it. The trustee manage the assets on behalf of the beneficiary, and assets are held in trust for specific purpose. People hold assets for different purpose. I mean, so when I say assets, assets does not really mean landed property alone. It could be financial and non-financial assets. It could also be even be some form of goodwill that the trustee is also managing. It could be different things that you're managing. It could be stock, it could be shares, it could be landed property, it could be some of for those in the music industry, they also have different things that they can hand over to the trustee to manage for them. Now, types of trust in organization. We have different types of trusts. Like I mentioned, trust is very flexible, very, 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 very flexible. And you can set up trust for different reasons. I mean, when you meet professionals like ourselves, we sit down listen to you. What do you want to achieve? What are you looking at doing? They can then look at it and say, okay, for this purpose, this is the kind of trust you need to you need to set up. For someone looking at doing philanthropical arts, looking at doing charity, instead of just doing it normally, you can put a structure around it. You can then set up a foundation. You can set up a charitable trust where you cater for people in need, for the needy, for the less privileged. You can set up a trust for it. So if you have charitable acts that you do annually, you can put a structure around it so that you also can also have more like a process, and not just process alone. You can have a structure that can also attract donors to donate to for the charitable cause. Now, for the purpose of this conversation, I'll just limit it to this. We have the offshore trust. So the offshore trust is basically trust that are established in foreign jurisdiction for different purpose. People who own assets beyond Nigeria. Some people who own assets in the UK, in the US, and also in other tax-free haven. The likes of some people own assets in Dubai, Qatar, Isle of Man, different places, different jurisdiction. Mauritius is also there. People who own assets and also do offshore trust in Mauritius. Why do they do all of these things? For different purpose. Some is assets protection. Some is for tax efficiency and confidentiality. And all of these things are used globally. Now, moving from offshore trust, which is foreign jurisdiction, let's come back to Nigeria. So you can also set up a living trust. A living trust is a very flexible structure that takes effect during your lifetime. So if you have let me say you have an aged mother you want to be giving money to maybe on a monthly basis, you can actually um, set up a trust that will then cater for our living expenses, cater for different things that is involved with. You can set up a trust to be, I've also seen situation where maybe colleagues, maybe one of their colleagues is late and they wanted to set up a trust for the wife and children just to cater for them. They didn't just want to give them, 50 million and say, okay, this is the donation we're able to donate towards the burial and all. They might say, okay, let's do 10% of it for burial. The remaining 90%, let's put it in a trust. Let trust be managing. So the trust is not just so that you can retain and preserve the capital, so that you can retain the amounts that you start with trust with. The return on that capital can then be used to sponsor whatever you have mentioned in the trust deed. So we also have a trust deed I didn't mention earlier. The trust deed is the legal document that the settlor and the trust company signed, and that will also be filed so that to make it legal. Now, moving from living trust, we have charitable trust, which I've mentioned, people that run foundation, people that have maybe endowment fund, they also do all of that under the charitable trust. Then we have the employee benefit trust. So for employee benefit trust, I mean, for companies that struggle to retain staffs, this employee benefit trust is one that is very important. So we have different ways of doing employee benefit trust. We have one we call the employee share scheme. There are companies at the time of joining them, they will promise you some certain percentage of shares. And say, okay, if you join us, or if you have stayed 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, you are entitled to a certain percentage of the shares of the company, which is something that people always also bargain when getting employment in blue chip companies. They look at it as, okay, a stock part of the benefits, which some companies are now adopting. I know a couple of companies that are doing this presently in Nigeria that give shares, that allocate numbers of shares to their employees, basically. For employee benefit trust too, if you also look at the likes of retirement, people also plan for retirement. You can set up a trust towards your retirement. You can also set up a trust for oil. I know of oil companies in Nigeria and other blue chip companies, you have gratuity fund. I also have corporate associations that also have gratuity fund, that they set up a gratuity fund for their employees basically. So when an employee leaves the service of the company, they pay them their gratuity. Not all companies have gratuity. And the more of gratuity comes from the federal government side, you have someone getting gratuity. Beyond the pension, people also still get what gratuity. So employee benefit trust can also work in this depending on the company. So organization also use what? Trust Now, education trust, which I've explained, I will not explain this again. You can set up education trust is designated for fund for academic need of children or dependents, covering from tuition, living expenses, and whatever expense that you want the trust to pay for. So you are contributing in a pool. The pool is generating more money for you, and the interest or the income being made on that pool of money will then be used to fund the tuition, to fund the living expense, and all of that. So if you meet us, would look at how much you need to contribute to be able to afford. So let me say, for instance, now the school fee of your children is 1 million naira. And definitely, if it's 1 million naira, and you don't want to deplete the principal, basically, you want the return on the trust fund to be able to be sufficient to pay those tuition. You definitely do not need to put 1 million as principal. We can walk around and say, okay, in 365 days, if you're looking at 1 million is the annual expense. We can then say, okay, you might need to put a 20 million, you might need to put in a 30 million as a startup capital so that you'll be able to get the income that is matching the expense, basically. Now, application of trust. So trust is definitely applicable to different sector. So when we come to for business leader, trust is used to structure and secure investors' confidence. I'd mentioned it. If you are floating an instrument in the market in Nigeria today, majorly for debt capital markets, if you are floating an instrument in the market, you must have a trustee on it. You must have a trustee on it because they are the one to look after the world. If you are floating a bond, a note issuance, corporate bond, public bond, private bond, you must have a trustee on it to definitely do what? To secure investors' confidence. There are companies that do not invest in instruments that do not have a trustee as transaction party. And they also manage bond proceed. Part of what we also use trustee for business leader is bond trusteeship. I've mentioned it for escrow arrangement. So for escrow, let me just explain a bit on escrow part. So let me say I have a family house in Lagos, and the family house is somewhere around, let me use Yaba for instance, around Yaba, Lagos. And it's a dilapidated building, and what is only valuable there is just the land. A developer can walk up to me and say, you know what, I have money. I can erect a building, I can erect 3, 4 story building on this piece of land, but I will take possession, the rent, everything about the house for the next 10 years. After 10 years, this the land and the building revert back to you. It's a juicy offer, right? Now, the landowner is skeptical and say, this person that has money, he can as well say, um, I'm the one that erected building on it. Then the land belongs to me. And the person that also, the developer that also has money can also believe that this guy has C of O for this land. If I erect my building on it, he might also claim that he owns both the land and the building. You know, you can bring in a trustee to that arrangement and say, okay, trustee, we're having this sort of transaction for purpose of trust and independent third party. Come into it, hold the title documents, and also for me to be sure that this developer has these funds available, let him also transfer the funds to you, and you can disburse to the contractors at intervals. Then I'm sure that so the trust issues is then being breached by the trustee in this instance. Or you are planning to take over a company, you could invite a trustee and say, okay, this is the consideration. Upon upon the execution of transaction documents, upon the attainment of some milestone, attainment of some condition precedent, condition subsequent, then money and documents can then exchange hand. Also for employee share scheme, if a company is maintaining a share scheme for the employer do not need to take custody of the shares. They need to transfer the shares to the trustee. That is the only way the employees will have trust in that arrangement because the trust assets is now sitting with the trustee. The asset is now sitting with the trustee. The stock, the shares is now sitting with the trustee. And trustee is seen as an independent third party that acts on that acts with good faith. Now, for government and public sector, trust serves as mechanism for transparent public fund and social investment program. We have instance of infrastructure finance, infrastructure trust that have been set up for different purpose. If you look at somewhere around Marina, if you look around Marina, there are times you see outer Marina construction, Sukuk, Sukuk Fund 2, Sukuk Fund 3. You see it on some of the roads. That's to tell you that the fund was raised by the public and it was financed through the Islamic finance route. You will see it. Also for social intervention, the trustee are also used for social intervention. There are times that celebrities, public figures wants to do things for the public. They don't leave it in the hands of individuals. They put a trustee in charge and say, you know what, be the one to champion this cause. For NGO, for philanthropical arts, a trustee is also needed to do what? To build trust in the system and also to be able to disseminate and also act in good faith without bias. A trustee acts without bias. And for individuals, a trustee is needed for estate planning, family trust, education trust, wealth transfer, family wealth transfer, and for tax efficiency. So from estate planning to family trust, education trust, all all of this, a trust is applicable and a trust can be used as an effective tool to transfer your assets from one generation to another, from yourself to your children, without hassle of going through probate, without hassle of doing a whole lot of things. A trust is just a perfect instrument and also a perfect tool to use. Now, there are many misconceptions about trust. So I'll just speak into the myth and also the reality. We have instances where we hear that trusts are only for the rich. That's not true. If you have an asset, you are once you have an asset, you are eligible to set up a trust. Because if you are setting up a trust, you definitely have an asset you want to put in that trust. So for anyone that has an asset and also have a sense of responsibility, and I also want to plan for the future, I also want to plan when they are no more, or when they are still even alive, they want to see the trust work. You can set up a trust, not only the rich. I can set up a trust, you can set up a trust. I'm sure if you don't have any asset, at least you have different assets that you can put in a trust basically. It's not limited to monies alone. Any of the assets that you own, you can put it under a trust. And that means is trust means losing control. Now, for trust structure, the trust deed clearly states what the trustee is empowered to do. You don't lose control totally. You don't even lose control most times. In fact, before a trustee can take some decision, they still need to revert back to you and say, okay, and this is the update. We're planning to do this. Then you give your consent to it to do. And when you are no more, there are already milestones, there are already agreements that a trustee must follow. And this document is legal. And no trustee wants to face litigation over someone else's assets. So, and no one also wants to lose their license. They are registered with the Security and Exchange Commission. Now, we also hear that trusts are too complex. Trusts are not complex. They are very simple, and with the guidance of professionals on how to go about it, they simplify it to the barest minimum or to the language of a layman to how you can understand. We have simple trust that you can set up that you just having maybe cash and some other thing. We also have some trust that might be cumbersome in terms of the assets. So the more the assets or the more the diversification of the assets, that is what then makes the dynamics. I will not say complexity now. The dynamics of how you can then do your estate planning as a whole or your legacy planning. And that misconception is trust hide money. Trust do not hide money. Trustees are regulated by the SEC, and you cannot be caught off guard hiding money for someone. So trust promote transparency and governance. In as much as trust is another tool people use for confidentiality. There are persons that use trust for confidentiality's sake. It is allowed. It's allowed. But when regulators come, I mean, you can also still leave the veil if they want to know. But you put up a trust, it's just like you setting up a company. And what people see is the name of the company and not your name. Can you say you're hiding your identity then? You set up a company not because you necessarily want to hide your name, but that is the right thing to do. And that myth is that trust is only for debt planning. That is not true. Many trusts are active even when you are still alive. I had mentioned it earlier. There are some trusts that kicks off even while you are still alive. A living trust kicks off when you are still alive. It is a will that kicks off after the demise of the person that set up that wrote the will. It is a will that kicks off after the demise, but a trust take place during and after, and it can also outlive the person. Trusts are not rigid, they are revocable. There are clauses in trust deed that make it revocable. There are also trustees that can adapt to different circumstances. Just name how you want it, you are going to get it. So it is not rigid. It is flexible. It's something you have a conversation with. You sit down and have a conversation with the estate planners on how you want your trust to be structured. Now, we also hear that trusts are outdated. Trusts are not outdated. In fact, currently now, many people use trusts now. I don't know if there's a popular footballer too that use trust. Okay, not even trust now. We also hear instance that I think Akimi, that most of the properties, most of his assets were in the names of his mother and not his own name. So that in case anybody wants to come after him, he will have no assets under his name. They are in the name of another person, which makes it a futile effort. We also have lots of people that use trust as a means. I mean, the popular Gani Faremi also set up a trust, and he's late for how many years now? His trust is still active and is still running. So trusts are not outdated. Trusts are used in bond, escrow, collective investment scheme. I had mentioned it. Example is the money market fund. Only lawyers can be trustee. I mean, we have corporate and also qualified individual that can serve as trustee. Trusts are expensive. No. We have simple trusts that you can do. It varies alongside with the structure. We have simple ones that are very, 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 very affordable, depending on the structure. For someone looking at doing offshore trust outside jurisdiction of Nigeria, and someone doing trust within Nigeria, they won't pay same amount definitely for that service because they involve different technicality. They also involve different things that will be done on the transaction. Now, role of trustees: administer trust assets, make prudent decision, uphold fiduciary duties. I had mentioned it in the course of the conversation, so I will not. Now, um, now bringing it to leadership and decision making. Who is a fiduciary? I had mentioned when we were doing definition, who a fiduciary is a person entrusted to act for another person's benefit. An example of a fiduciary is a trustee, basically. Directors of companies are also fiduciaries. Executors of an estate are also fiduciaries. Administrators are also fiduciaries, basically. Um, Now, what are the core fiduciary duty? The whole duty of care. The whole duty of care. You must make informed decision. You must also avoid conflict of interest. You must also act in good faith as a fiduciary. As a trustee, you also had into it. Fiduciary risk for leaders. So for leaders taking up the role of a fiduciary, some of the risks that are associated with these roles are mismanagement or negligence. You must be very careful that at every point in time, funds are not mismanaged. You must also ensure that there is no lack of oversight. You have to have oversight of everything going on. And also, another risk that is there for leaders is also the risk of distinguishing between personal and organizational interests. So you don't allow your personal interests to cloud or override organizational interests. And where there's a conflict of interest, you declare and say, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You declare your interest, your conflict of interest. So that to give who is setting up that kind of trust an ample time to then appoint someone else or find a solution around the conflict or settle the conflicts. Now, ethical leadership and fiduciary responsibility. Trust begins with ethical choices. As a trustee, so uh, as a trustee, right, in as much as you are trying to, we are meant to protect the asset to ensure that the asset does not depreciate. We also do not just invest those funds in anyhow instruments. For someone setting up an Islamic estate planning, you definitely know that interest is forbidden. for the Muslim faithfuls. For ethical investing, interest is forbidden. What they get as return is profit. They invest in business venture, and what they make from it is profit. They share loss and they also share profits together. And we have different Islamic banks in Nigeria. We have the likes of we have Jais, we have the likes of Lotus, we have a couple of them. And we also have different houses that does that too. Now, another thing is integrity. We cannot overemphasize this, which we have mentioned. Integrity drives what? Financial transparency. So for it to be transparent, you must have integrity. You must have integrity as a leader in an organization, in a small community, in a small group. Integrity is very, very, very important. Now, I'll move to financial governance because we're considering from financial literacy to trust to fiduciary, and we are moving on to financial governance on how this still influence leadership. Financial governance is a framework ensuring accountability, transparency, control, and control over financial resources. For financial governance to matter, it builds stakeholders' trust. If you don't have financial governance or you don't have a governance structure, your stakeholders, your investors, people that matters in your business will not trust you. Even your vendor that supply you goods will not trust you. So trust is very, very important. It also prevents what? Financial governance, stating how things should be done in terms of your standard operating manual, in terms of your TAT, turnaround time on issues. If you have all of those things in place, it's what? It prevents mismanagement. It also enhances decision credibility. On how credible, so if you have your rules laid down, it is easier to make decisions based on the rules. Just like in Nigeria now, we have the 1999 Constitution, which guides the judge on whatever decision is to make, not just the judge inventing uh, a judgment from anywhere, even though the other things are being considered in making a judgment. But the Constitution serves as a guide for decision making. So the financial governance also serves as what? As a playbook for decision making, credible decision making. For financial leaders, decisions are influence strategy, risk appetite, how you allocate your resources, all of those financial tasks need to be done. And for tools used for governance structure, now we have the for corporate organization now, we have different committees, we have different segregation of powers. The person that initiates a transaction is not the same person that check. The person that checks is not the first authorizer. We have the second authorizer before the money now goes out. All of those things are internal controls that have been put in place for governance sake and also to ensure that there's no theft within the system. In as much as you trust your people, trust employee, we also put all of these internal controls in place. Somebody to check, somebody to approve, somebody to vet. Also, for companies too, we also have the risk management framework. The risk management framework that states how different risks are categorized. At what point, what do you do? When this happen, what are the controls over it? At what point do you see it as a red flag? What kind of companies do you invest your money with? Are they company rated or unrated company? What is the permissible rating for a company? Audit committee, they also have the audits that also audit all the activities of the company that has happened. They also look at it and point out to management and the board on how the company is faring. And that's why we see companies have audited financial statements, which is as not just prepared internally, also being vetted and approved by an external auditor. Another thing is balancing mission and money, aligning your financial choices with organizational goal. So if the goal of an organization is to invest in sustainable projects or impactful projects, that means that company will be looking at doing things around sustainability. And for projects they will also be sponsoring will be projects tilted towards sustainability. and not project towards funding terrorism, funding other acts, or funding things that have to do with non-permissible transaction or non-permissible products, which doesn't mean that the company is bad, but the goal is to finance what? Sustainable projects, and greenhouse projects, green bonds, solar system, alternative power, all of those things that revolves around sustainability and reduce of carbon. Now, one of the common pitfalls for leaders is overlooking compliance. It's something I've seen firsthand. There are lots of time that business leaders, because of relationship with individuals or with their vendors or with their clients, they tend to overlook compliance. And when compliance or risk gives raise an eyebrow or something, you just hear that, oh, we have gotten an exceptional approval. We have gotten an exceptional approval to carry on this transaction. And on the long run, those relationship transactions end up bad because we neglect compliance, or we overlook some certain things and we go straight. I mean, I've been in a situation whereby a client was trying to strike a deal, and I'm saying, oh, this is not acceptable. We're not doing this, we're not doing that. And the client said, I've spoken to your boss already. Call your boss. You know, at that point, compliance or whatsoever has been overlooked. And I mean, you can only tell that those transactions is bound to fail. So we also need to have a very strong internal control policy, internal control procedure to ensure that transactions follow due process. Also, communication. Another pitfall is poor communication. Co- Effective communication give a sense of direction. Communicate effectively. Do not give haphazard information. Communicate effectively. Now, rounding up. I'm rounding up, and I would say for this session, if there's anything that would not grab, do not forget these three things. Key takeaways from this session, basically. Um, One is that financial literacy helps you to make informed decisions. Trust finance helps you to institutionalize and sustain those decisions. Decision to keep money, decision to save, decision to diversify, all of those things. Trust finance then do what? Help you to scale it up to the next level. So we need to move from the level we are and also move to the level of what? Of sustainability, of level of what? Impact, of level of legacy, that you don't just stop where you are, but move towards trust. So, and also leaders must evolve from financial awareness to financial governance. Is very, very, very important. Don't just be aware of financials, also be what? Be ready to also put the financial governance in place, which we have mentioned. Financial literate leader create wealth. Financially structured leaders preserve wealth. So there's a difference between creating wealth and also preserving it. You can create wealth during the course of a lifetime. You worked, and you're enjoying your money. And if you don't put a proper structure in it, I mean, we have very rich people in this country that after their demise, you do not hear about them again. You do not hear about, we have lots of them that I will not want to mention them. That after their demise, is that the family business go down, the business goes down, or you do not hear about them again. You do not hear about the aftermath. Their children mismanage the funds. All of those things. It's because there is poor financial planning. You need to have what? A proper financial structures as leaders. So that all you have worked for, all you have gathered, do not just go to waste and it's not being mismanaged. They are used for the right cause. So I'm employing us this evening that beyond financial literacy, let's consider setting up a trust. You could start small for education trusts, living trusts. Meet professionals, they will enlighten you more on it, on how to go about it, basically. In conclusion, understanding the different types of trust empowers leaders to make informed financial decisions that uphold transparency, fairness, and accountability. And ultimately, effective use of trust strengthen governance, safeguard assets that cannot be overemphasized. Safeguard assets, that is what one of the things trustee does. they safeguard the assets, preserve the capital, and aligns what? Financial practices with organizational integrity and purpose. Thank you very much for listening and for paying attention. I would step down now and hand over back to our moderator to coordinate the Q&A section. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much. That was such an interesting session. Me personally, I learned a thing or two, and we would be throwing this to our audience on the Q&A. If you have questions, can you please share your questions in the comment section, or you can unmute your mic and just, share your questions. Mr. John would be answering questions now. Do we have any questions in the house?
Please, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. John. I want to really appreciate this lecture because in no other time than now, this kind of topic is very critical, especially in this part of the world, to bring this information and to help reduce multidimensional poverty, that's passed from parents to children. So I wanted to ask if you could kindly advise on, different brackets of trust that can be created and possible vendors that we can approach to assist us in the creation of this kind of trust, maybe educational trust or, any other kind of trust fund that one can create for children, So I wanted to know if you can point us in the right direction. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. Like I had mentioned, there are about 36 trust companies in Nigeria that you can approach for it, which my company is part of it, First Ally Trustees. We help in structuring and also doing estate planning. We listen to you, we listen to your needs, know what estate planning instrument works for you better, and understand what your needs are and what your long-term goals are. For education trusts, it's set up for children so that even to cater for their tuition, their academic, anything related to their academics, basically, it caters for it. Even during your lifetime, you can see your trust even paying your school fee. They have clients that have a pool of funds, and they say, you know what, let me just put this 50 million on that trust. Whatever this 50 million is generating, let it be paying my rent. Whatever this 50 million is generating, let it be paying my child's school fee. Let it be paying their tuition, pay their hostel, pay anything that relates to their academics. In fact, I had a client in one of my former company that actually set up a trust to cater for her funeral. Her funeral, she does not want to disturb her children, anything. She set aside millions of naira to cater for her funeral. She even had an agreement with the funeral home that would champion everything. So people set up trust for the same purpose. Like you had mentioned, you might want to set up a trust for educational purpose. Yes, it's allowed. And who can you reach out to? You can reach out to me. I believe Brickhills Consulting might put up my details, and also you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, John Adeoye. I'm very active on that platform too. Yes, I believe I'm able to answer your question. Or you can also drop your phone number or your emails in the chat box. I'll pick it up from there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that question and answer. Please, do we have any other person with a question? I think we have a question here from Bright. As a young person trying to navigate the financial market, what financial tools can one utilize in investing when one don't have a financial advisor?
Okay, thank you very much. For Mr. Bright, okay. We're all young on this call, so I would say that, we need to first examine what is your risk appetite. I mentioned it during the course of my conversation. What have you invested in before? What kind of returns are you looking at? So we have the low risk investments, we have the medium, and also have the high risk investment. But for everyone I speak to, I mentioned that you need to start from low risk investments. I mean, a low risk investment, you have the treasury bill, you have the fixed deposit, you also have the money market instrument, which in fact, most times I advise people to do money market investment, because you can start with as low as 5,000 naira. Then, so a money market fund is a collective investment scheme where you join pool of funds to invest. So let me say, for instance, if you are to go to a bank to do a fixed deposit with 500,000 naira, let's say you'll be given, let's say 10%. Meanwhile, if you do a mutual fund, like they said, mutual funds, you put funds together. You bring your 500,000, and that person brings their own 1 million, and that person brings their own 25 million. They will now go to the market and negotiate for a higher rate. You can now get maybe like a 15 or a 20% as rates. With that, every person that contributed to the pool gets the benefit of enjoying high interest rates rather than going directly to a bank and negotiate as an individual. So a mutual fund will work, and mutual funds are doing very well currently. We have mutual funds doing at 19, 21%. First Ally we have an asset management subsidiary that does investment too. They have a mutual fund, money market fund. You can download My Investor from the App Store or Play Store, My Investor. I'll also leave my contact in the chat box so that in case you want to also reach out.
All right. Thank you very much. We have another question from Mr. Uche Oti. With the rapid rise of fintech in Nigeria, what due diligence should one use to access the risk and reliability of these digital financial platforms?
Okay, thank you very much. So what I would say is that, I mean, we have lots of fintechs parading themselves to be doing a lot of things. I would say that for fintech, basically, you have to look at who are they registered with. Beyond CAC registration, CAC registration does not even hold water so much again, because different companies file with CAC to undergo or undertake a particular form of business, and they digress from it. So I would say you also look at who are their regulators. You also look at who are their regulators. Is CBN regulating them? Check online reviews of people that have patronized them before. We have a lot of fintechs that are actually doing very well in Nigeria. I don't want to mention them. We have lots of them doing well. You also need to look at who is regulating them. Are they regulated by the CBN? Are they regulated by the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, or Central Bank of Nigeria? They must be regulated by a particular regulator that is credible and also known in Nigeria. Who are their regulators? For those that are yet to get their license, or they will tell you, I mean, I've seen cases of fintech that approached us to be trustee to their transaction. And when we look at it, they are not even registered. I mean, those kind of houses could also part away with your hard-earned money. So you also need to look at, are they regulated? So you can check them out on their website. Recently, the Securities and Exchange Commission has even mentioned that for any investment house on your website, put it there. So and so company is registered, licensed, and regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So you see it on their website now. Everyone that has to do with investment, you see it on their website. So for that also applies to fintech companies. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I guess so. Thank you very much. So I can see
Hi, I do have a question.
okay. Well,
Good
sorry, hold
evening.
on. Miss Kim's hand she's raised her hand on like for a while now. I don't know if
Yes,
she's
hello,
ready to
good
ask.
evening. So I want
Yeah,
to
good
say
evening.
good evening everyone. Mr. John, this has been a very interesting lecture. I'm sure everyone's interest is being or has been piqued and we want to know more. So my question is if I wanted to, or somebody just simple like me wanted to set up a trust, I'm not near the end of my life, so I'm still pretty young, but I've just been intrigued and I want to set up a trust. Do I need to be working? Do I need to be making a certain income? What are the things that I need to put in mind or I need to have to be able to start? And then can I be benefiting from the trust while I'm still alive? Or it's something that takes into or kicks in when I'm no longer? I don't know if you
Okay.
can clarify those things for me. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
yes. Okay. So let me start from the last question, that can you benefit from a trust? Yes, 100% you can benefit from trust. In fact, so it is wills that takes effect after your demise, and wills practically state how your asset or your estate should be administered, and who gets what, who gets this, who gets that, who enjoys those funds in the bank account, who get your landed property. That is will. But for trust, we have a living trust that can take effect while you are still alive. Like I mentioned, there are a couple of persons that acquire assets through a trust, and they are the beneficiary. There are some persons that set up a foundation and uses the foundation to put the foundation under trust. Trust supervise the foundation and use it to execute their charitable act. Use it to also execute their personal uh, business that they want to do. So the long and short is that you can be a beneficiary under
I will
a
put my
trust.
clothes.
You can be a beneficiary. And for the
Okay.
second question, with respect to how can you start? Do you need to be contributing? So I would say that, there's a saying that say, as you lay your bed, so you lie on it. So for a trust, you basically also need, there's a startup fund. So let me say, it depends on what you're looking at. Now, if I'm looking at doing an education trust, right? I want to be paying my ward's school fee via the trust. I don't want to bring in money from my pocket. In fact, I have a client that is single and is already doing education trust. He's not even married though. He's already preparing for the future of his children, the unborn children. He's already preparing for it. He set up a trust and is contributing bit by bit into it. You can set up a trust with maybe um let me say 100, 500,000, and you can be contributing to it on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis. But be rest assured that any funds or pool of funds in that bucket appreciates, because the trustee will also ensure that they invest those funds in yielding assets that will generate more return for you. So if you are putting in a 500,000 naira now, don't expect that at the end of the year your money will also remain 500,000. No, the trustee also invests it in a very low risk instrument, because the priority of the fund is to safeguard the fund. Except it's expressly stated, you are not expected to now put that kind of fund into equities, except you expect that put it in equities, then you go and buy stock and the stock now backfire and the stock went from 100% to 0% and you lose all your funds. No, they put the money in low risk instruments so that it can generate return for you and also preserve the capital. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So if I wanted to start now, the best person to talk to, is it a lawyer or a trust fund management firm, or how do I approach this if I wanted to start?
Okay, is a trust company. You can speak to a trust company. I also work with a trust company. I've dropped my details in the chat box. You can also pick it from there. You can send an email or give a phone call. My numbers, my details have also been shared in the chat box. So you can pick it from there. Or you can also drop your details in the chat box. Somebody will pick it up.
All
Yeah.
right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kim. Okay, who I think Marianne Paul, you had a question before we went off. I don't know if she's still
Oh, sorry.
available to ask her
Good evening.
question.
Good evening.
Oh, good evening. Okay, you can go
Sorry,
ahead.
I have a question, please. Yeah, sorry. Which taxes are exempted to be paid by a trust? Not to be paid by
Which
a
what?
trust, because I know which taxes are exempted. For example, I know if you have an asset and you leave it in a trust for your wards, you would be exempted tax. That is, they will not pay what you call capital gains tax or any tax when they are receiving those assets. But if you are setting up a company under a trust, that is, the
Mm,
trust owns the company, which taxes or which advantages would you say it has?
okay. I mean, so before now, right? Lots of persons have enjoyed tax savings by setting up a trust, right? Before the enactment of the new tax law. But under the new tax law, there are a lot of other things that has been opened up. that we have people that do not invest directly. They invest through a company that will be set up, which we call a special purpose vehicle, an SPV. Then they use the SPV to then purchase, also invest in any instrument, and also use to purchase some certain things, whereby they then save some costs in terms of tax. But currently, the new tax law has a bit exposed a bit of that part. But I mean, there are still some parts that you can still use trust to also save tax. So let me say um in terms of you passing on your assets to an individual, let me say maybe using will, for example, now, and you're using will as an estate planning tool. So if you are passing on your asset to your children, your siblings, and all of those things, there's an extra tax that you pay to the government. But if you're using trust, you might not necessarily pay all of those probate fees, probate tax again, because you already have a trust in place. But for companies, I would say that, I mean, the with the enactment of the Nigerian new tax law, there already conversation around it to also see how, but I know it's very robust and it's already even um digressing from having to, you have to open up the company, who is behind it, who is doing what, and they are also being taxed currently. So I would say that we might just still need to sit down and see how the current structure you have, and also still see how we can structure something that works for you, that also be able to help you save tax. There are a couple of other things that you can do that might not be able to explain all of that on this call. But if we engage one-on-one, we can come up with something that works for you.
No problem. I already saved your contact, but I have a story. This is a short question. If you have your business and your assets are set up under a trust, if you have legal issues with the government, are they allowed to go and take whatever fine or fee? Are they allowed to take it from your trust? That is, let's say you are fined by the government 1 million, but in your bank account, it is showing that you have 10,000 naira. But the way you structured your trust is worth, let's say, probably 100 million. Is the government allowed to forcefully take it from your trust after finding out that you have a trust set up?
Okay, and I mean, no, that does not apply. The ownership of the funds is not in your name again. Is now in the trust name. So they can't come after the funds under trust. But however,
Beautiful.
we're in Nigeria. But however, there are extreme cases, very extreme cases that because under duty of secrecy under the law too, there are conditions whereby you are supposed to also do what, divulge some information when it is in interest of the public, when it's in interest of the court, when there's an order, and all of those things. I mean, that's what we also encounter in banks, that banks divulge your balance to a court after obtaining the necessary document from the court. So same thing also apply if the court has requested for some information. As a trustee, you might also be obligated to. But in the ordinary course of business, no one comes after your funds, after your property in trust, basically. Yeah.
Okay. I can see Mr. Mosby's hand up. I don't know. Do you have a question?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank
Yeah.
you, facilitator, for this thought-provoking session. I wanted to just find out from you, what financial consideration does the beneficiary have to give the trustee? Is there a standard financial consideration, or does it vary depending on the trust policy the beneficiary needs to take?
Okay, so when you say financial consideration for an individual, so it depends on what asset we are speaking to now. So let me say if a trust has been established and let me say funds were moved to the trustee. So let me use money now, for example, I move into the care of the trustee. And after the demise, maybe what you have stated in your trust is to say that, oh, out of this 200 million you are managing for me as trustee, X and Y goes to this person. The beneficiary is the beneficiary of the asset. He does not need to pay anything. Now, even when you set up an education trust, if you are paying your child's school fee through your trust, your child does not necessarily need to pay anything to the trustee. They don't need to pay because that service must have been paid for by the settlor. That means the person setting up or establishing the trust, basically.
No, let me reiterate my question. Maybe you didn't really get it.
Okay.
When I mean financial consideration, I mean the premium, the beneficiary needs to pay the trustee, the holder of the trust, like in commission. Like for an insurance company now, they might say, okay, pay so and so amount. So is there any standard financial consideration, or will it be depend on the policy?
You mean like a fee? Is there any fee?
Yeah, what's the fee? The cost?
Okay.
Or is it
Okay,
free?
so
Uh-huh.
Okay, so beneficiary does not pay any consideration or anything. Who pays for the service is the settlor. The person setting up the trust, not the beneficiary. Beneficiary is just benefiting from the trust assets. He's not the one that set up the agreement. So it is the settlor who sets up the trust that pays for their service, and it varies based on the complexities and jurisdiction they are working with. But I mean, for simple ones, the prices are not so much like that.
Okay, so now we are getting to meet you through this platform, Brickhill. Are we supposed to deal with you? Are we supposed to deal with Brickhill?
You can reach out to them. They can always link you to ourselves. You can reach out to Brickhills. They would share our contact with you, and can also reach out to us directly.
So, any
Yeah,
information you need,
sorry.
this is the platform you can reach out to us.
What if you set up, Mr. John?
Yeah.
Yeah, what if you set up a trust in another country, but it's owned by your Nigerian businesses are run through that trust in another country? Is that allowed in Nigeria?
Yes, it's allowed. So I'd mentioned when I was discussing the different type of trust, I'd mentioned offshore trust. Um, it's allowed. It's allowed. So offshore trust that involves beyond the four walls of Nigeria alone. It involves foreign investment in other companies abroad or foreign asset abroad. All of those things they are called offshore trusts. It's managed in a separate way based on the dynamics and also the complexities of those jurisdictions.
Thank you very much. I have saved your contact. I have saved your contact.
Um,
Thank you, sir.
so for any information, you can reach out to Brickhills Consulting, and we would, what the platform would help you with information on Mr. John. Thank you very much. So do we have any other questions before we wrap it up, please? We can take one more question before we close for today. Okay, I think we have one question on the chat. And this is outside the box question. What is the fate of a trustee assets in relation to the new tax regulation coming in just few months from now? Is this something one should be concerned about? This is from Mr. Bright.
Okay. So I would say that I mean the new hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. So I would say that even for trustees, everyone is still trying to break down the new tax law, see uh where the new tax law speaks with respect to trustee, and also see the opportunities and also see the challenge that comes with it. So I would say as a firm, we also still because you also need to also speak with tax consultants, come up with structures that works well and structures that would also delight your clients. So I would say all of those conversations are currently ongoing related to the tax law, because there's a thing for every law related, because I've also looked at the tax law. In fact, I'm currently even reviewing it, coming up with a brief on it. But we also need to also speak with the tax consultants, the tax people, to also give an interpretation to some of the clauses in that new tax law. So I would say all of those conversations are currently ongoing to be able to give a very precise advice to our clients and whosoever is looking at setting up a trust. So I would say it's ongoing, but there are lots packed in the new tax law that trustee might need to shift from the traditional way and also move a bit in terms of regulation, basically, so that you are not found wanted and start paying fine, basically. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that answered the question. Okay, so for now, that would be all. I guess we don't have any more questions. We'll be rounding up this session right about now. So I would want to especially thank Mr. John for such an insightful session today. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. We hope you found this webinar very valuable. And I also want to remind you that we at Brickhills Consulting, we offer a wide range of accredited courses to help you expand your skills. And you can also, get this particular webinar on our YouTube channel from tomorrow. If you have any other questions, you can always reach out to us via social media platform, our Instagram, our YouTube, and you can also check our website to have a broad idea of what we do, and all our information is on our website. So you can also stay tuned for other future webinars and courses, and don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions at all. So thank you very much for today, and we'll see you next month for our next month's webinar. I remain your lovely host, Ezine Hart. Thank you.